What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Detection Dispatch, the show where we talk about detection engineering, SOC, IRL, and the things that we all are feeling, but rarely documenting. I'm your host, Alex Hurtado, and today we are doing something not all that different than what we typically do on here, and that is leaning into the community, open source SecOps projects out there, and showcasing someone that has something that we all can really improve and leverage from. And that is not by way of a shiny, new tool, consulting service, and or pitch, but instead about analyst cognition, memory, continuity, and why quite frankly, the modern SOC has just become, this over-engineering mess of piling detection depth. I am so excited to present today's guest, K.C Yerrid. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of your story and how you made it through the trenches of the SOC today?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Alex. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys and everybody in your community. I've watched you for a long time, so I'm a big fan. So as far as getting into information security, it's pretty simple for me. I came up through the traditional IT route. I was a systems administrator for a manufacturing organization we ran, 4 or 5 shifts, 24/7, 365. I was running everything from AS400s to token ring networks to Windows NT. This is back in the 90s, way back in the day. But fast forward to getting into information security, I was attending an IT user group meeting, and they brought in a gentleman by the name of Jack Wiles, who is one of my mentors, somebody that I really, really think very highly of in the industry. And in his presentation, he kind of distilled what social engineering was all about. He played a couple of audio tapes of, people being social engineered into giving up information that they shouldn't have, and things along those lines. And the way that he presented it was almost like it was like street magic. And from that point on, I was hooked on information security. That's where I knew I wanted to be in information security. Then we had 9/11 that happened, and we had a need in our organization at the time for a business continuity lead. We were a very high performance systems operation shop. And so business continuity wasn't just a question of just cutting over a site. I mean, we were booting off of our SANs and things like that. So it was a pretty intense business continuity thing. Mm-hmm. But then ultimately I ended up in security operations for Amazon.com, where I was the technical program manager running all of the programs that they were doing within the CERT at Amazon.com on the retail side, making improvements, improving capabilities, helping my analysts be more productive, so on and so forth. And then ultimately I ended up making the hard cut into security operations, and where I was really leading teams of analysts to get more out of their operations capabilities. And so that's where I stand today, is I'm a kind of a servant leader to a bunch of security analysts who are much smarter than I am and just bang to the wall, hardworking folks. So I'm blessed to have such a great team that I work with.
Very much, it looks like, and not bad to have the Chris Angel of security for a mentor. That's fantastic. Treating security like street magic. And I got to say that leaning into the community or your local InfoSec group, coming out of Chai BurCon this past week, I was at this local Chicago conference, which is a completely non-vendor, local Chicago community. And Johnny Christmas put on this fantastic talk about how there really is no other way to do the SOC or SecOps but to lean into other folks that are doing the same things. Back before the Discord and the Slacks of the world, that was really what we had. And if you had kind of this problem up against you, and there is no other way than to find someone else who's up against the same problem, and then maybe just sit together in a room and talk about the problem. Maybe once you're 2, 3, 4, 5 of you with the same problem, maybe then you're gonna figure it out. And that's truly how I think that's the true vibe and the essence of the InfoSec BurbSec community, and there's one in every single, city out there. So if you definitely should get involved with your local one. We've got BurbSec here in the city. I'm sure I think there might be a BurbSec over in Texas where you're from.
Yeah, there's definitely a bunch of groups. We have the Dallas Hackers Association, and we have the North Texas ISA, and a bunch of other wonderful groups out there that are just getting people together and just having good conversations and just trading information. And that's what it's all about, really.
Truly. And now you are, with all of that journey and your path into security, you're currently smoothing out the rough edges of, I heard you throw a couple acronyms out there, ITIDs, Cypher, Scout, which we're going to be talking about today, which I'm so excited about, and just really, bringing together this evolution of detection engineering and investigation reality and human thinking into the same conversation. Typically, I ask my guests, what are you working on these days? But I know exactly what you're working on. So I want to give you the opportunity to tell our detection engineering community what your Scout program is, your project, what it's not, right? Tell us what it's all about.
Okay, great. Yeah, the way the Scout kind of came about was the need for us to kind of macro look at or micro look at things from a personal knowledge management perspective. And at the time, I was working with a product called Obsidian. It's a pretty popular program out there for note-taking and things like that. I saw an opportunity there to kind of incorporate threat intelligence as part of the overall graph constructs that Obsidian exposed for free. And so rather than spend, 6 figures for a tip, some people just don't need that level of granularity. They just need to know, things about actors and things along those lines. And so I wanted to kind of make things consumable, bite-sized for an individual analyst with the opportunity for them to share comments and share notes with other people as they feel appropriate. It's not a multi-user system. And so you don't have a bunch of people climbing all over each other, writing over each other's notes. It's really designed to be personal notes on what you're doing and what you're looking at individually. And it looks not only across threat intelligence, but also security operations. So you can do things like, schedule meetings and capture meeting notes. If you're using one of the AI wearables these days,
oh gosh,
you can export those
far away from me. Keep those far away from me.
Absolutely. So you can export those transcript notes and dump them right into Obsidian, and you have basically a journal of your entire day in front of you.
Yeah.
And so that is Cypher and Scout. So Cypher is the threat intelligence side of things. Scout is the security operations side of things. And then funneling and kind of the foundation of all of this is something called ITIDs, which is incident type identification digits. It's basically a standardized taxonomy. It's 4 tiers that go from the general to the very specific. So if you look at the top level tier, you might see attack against a human, for instance. And then you go down to the next level and you see phishing attacks. And then you go down the next level from that, you see spear phishing attacks. Then you go down one level from that and you get, whaling attacks. And so the idea is that you standardize on these digits in your SIM or on your console. And so you can track not only the telemetry of when things are happening, but you can also kind of track it within Scout to see where the correlations are coming from between, attack types and things of that nature.
So what I'm hearing, and for those that don't know what Obsidian is, a tool like kind of like a OneNote, like the OneNote taking tool, right? That you can log into. You can that saves all of your work, right?
That's correct. It's a locally stored personal knowledge management system, essentially.
Oh, and Scout is the framework behind it all. And ITID is the way that you structure the ways that you conduct a certain type of investigation, because depending on which type it is, there's going to be, many different ways to go. And then Cypher is how you go about it every day within Obsidian.
Yeah, you tie in the actors and the TTPs and all the observables from a threat intelligence perspective into the security operations function.
I love this framing. I like that it's obviously it's free dollars, right?
Yeah.
It's free dollars, and it's really a way to organize sharpen, consume what a lot of what I'm hearing is like this tribal knowledge that we undergo every day. There's no 2 days that are the same. And imagine trying to keep that all in your head.
Yeah, or even on a flat note-taking app like OneNote. I mean, that's the challenge with OneNote, is that everything is a folder or a file. There's no relationships between the entities. And so it's really kind of tough to map a story from a OneNote notebook.
I couldn't agree more, as I'm like struggling in OneNote right now. Trying to my one struggle is because even if you keyword search things across your OneNote, and I'm pretty sure I have like 12 years worth of notes dating back from my college days. Like I have notebooks as classes, like ISYE 410. Like that's keyword searching is not good. It even doesn't even bring up some things. And then at one point I went through an era of writing out my notes on an iPad via OneNote with like the iPad pencil, and it won't pick that up in a keyword search. So I love this idea of this knowledge-based system that you can run, you can clone, you can run locally, you can own. What does that sound like? Definitely something up our alley. So tell us a little bit more about the structure, the thinking behind it. Where did this kind of come from, and how are you using it today within your team?
Yeah, so, I think the foundational piece of the puzzle is that everything within Scout is an entity. It's an individual entity, so we separate things out. A TTP is a TTP, an IOC is an IOC, a threat actor is a threat actor, and so on and so forth. And so by splitting things out into individual atomic entities, that allows me to, or anybody using the Scout system, I should say, to go in and map relationships. And so if you think about a typical graph construct, where you have nodes and you have vertices that indicate relationships, Obsidian does that automatically underneath the hood with the help of Scout and Cypher. And so, for instance, if you're looking for, let's take a threat actor, Scattered Spider, as an example, you click on the note for Scattered Spider, it'll pop up in the side panel all the relationships that are existing to Scattered Spider, including the TTPs, including any campaigns, including any incidents that you may have run, or anything that you've done that has Scattered Spider involved with it. And it shows it visually, so you can kind of spin it around, you can kind of see how things are, you can zoom out a little bit and say, okay, show me 2 levels of detail away from Scattered Spider and see who they may be affiliated with. Or you can zoom in and say, show me the very specifics of this campaign and what they did in this campaign.
That becomes so much more valuable than a typical dashboard or a very simple, process linked graph, right? Like the linking of processes. Like it puts so much more into perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting because investigations, I mean, investigations aren't linear by nature. Yeah. I mean, there's a playbook that you're supposed to follow. I mean, SANS and NIST have their incident response guides and things like that. But the reality is an investigation can take multiple turns. You can go down multiple dead ends. And the nice thing about Scout is that a dead end is not a bad thing. You're adding information to the corpus of knowledge in your system. And so you're actually learning by doing, whether you're hitting or you're missing.
Right.
And so you're building your knowledge base up individually through, your standard, normal, natural processes.
That is so true. Like, I think that's so spot on that linear workflows are the problem here, right? Like tickets and folders and timelines, they really force your investigation to go into this fake linear story. Maybe not always fake, but just this linear story. And that's very limiting. And of course, investigations don't work like that. They're very recursive. They're very messy. And you're right, they're entirely entity driven and they require constant looping back on themselves. If you have the time or the detection depth, like I guess capacity to even go back, how many times are we actually going back and rereading our notes from before? I can see a lot of things breaking when investigations are forced into linear workflows.
Yeah, absolutely. And, folders themselves are really designed for archiving. They're not really designed for investigating. And that's because, entities can exist in multiple categories at the same time.
That's absolutely true. Have you discovered any efficiencies from this new approach?
I think we have observed some efficiencies. As the team is learning the tool, it's not a very straightforward ramp up because it's such a shift in paradigm and thinking.
Okay.
But once you start getting into the habits of doing your daily note and doing your using the Scout launcher to launch an incident and starting to track all of your markdown and your YAML fields and things like that, it becomes more and more natural and intuitive.
Okay.
So you're definitely starting to see some efficiencies and looking at things like we don't have to look over a million IOCs. We can look in our Scout instance and look for that particular IP address and pivot off of that.
I want to tap into that. Is it really that intense of a change? Like, tell us more a little bit about why everything is an entity, like this such big shift way of thinking. Like, how do these atomic type notes change the analyst's day-to-day behavior in consuming their investigations?
Like traditional note-taking systems, a note is a page and the meaning lives inside of that page only.
Right.
So the relationships are implicit, whereas in entity-based thinking, a note represents a thing that exists independently of any single note in the system.
Yeah.
So the text of the note becomes attributes of that thing and not the thing itself.
Yeah.
Right? And so the idea is to stop asking yourself, what should I write in this note? And start asking, what is this thing that I'm looking at and what do I know about it? And so while it's a subtle change, it's a pretty powerful one at that.
So it's smart enough based on Obsidian, like to make connections about how the relationship between text is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you can even start to put like sums, like totals on how many lines are connected from this entity to others. Yeah, I could see that being very useful.
There's a lot of power underneath the hood in Obsidian where you can do querying and filtering and things like that. So you can drill in and zoom out pretty simply. It's a pretty nice tool.
Yeah, and I can't stop thinking about like how much tribal knowledge is rarely missed. Not because it's not documented. Maybe you are documenting it in like with chicken scratch, but no one ever is kind of looking back at their notes this way, right? To see what those connections are with the FBI, like connections on a whiteboard. Now, after every incident is closed, I mean, it's very rare that all the details get stored. Sometimes they're referenceable and queryable, but very rarely you get this visualization aspect of it. So I cannot wait to see if you're able to share what some of these link analysis graphs look like.
So here is the Scout launcher. This is like the central hub of where everything happens within Scout. It's broken down into 4 sections. You have the Scout operation stuff. You have the Cipher threat intelligence work. You have perspectives, which is kind of like a merging of dashboards and visualizations and all kinds of things just to kind of provide a perspective. And then you also have some utilities here. And so typically what would happen would be, an analyst comes in when they first come in the morning or in the evening when their shift starts, they're going to come in and click on a new daily note. I'll drag it over here. One of the first things that we do, and this is kind of an interesting thing that I'm trying to track for my analysts, are factors for burnout. Obviously in the Security Operations Center, burnout and alert fatigue are rampant. And so what I want to try to do is I want to start everybody off with some simple sliders that they can just kind of create what they're feeling that day when they first start off. Now they can put in what kind of music they're listening to, and that will show up later on. I mean, these are all bells and whistles that really don't impact the application, but, little bells and whistles to help them get started on the day.
Yeah, a little something.
Start and open up the daily note. This is the daily note. Up top, you have the YAML front matter, which is semi-structured data that can be used by Obsidian and other applications to kind of coordinate and correlate information. As you go down, there are different sections that people can fill in as they feel comfortable or as they have time. Sometimes they'll do it at the end of the day. Sometimes they'll do it as they're going. Sometimes they'll do it at the start of the day. But basically what happens is with this daily note is everything that you do within Scout is recorded in your daily note. It might come back into Scout and do it in new incident or an investigation.
It popped out a new incident.
I could
Maybe the SOARs hate to see you coming.
Yeah. We can do sequential mode, which will give an automatic number here. Then we'll save and continue. Well, titles required. My bad. And now we have the test incident. Now, this is a separate entity that we use to track things like what happened in the incident. Give me a timeline. What was your initial detection and triage?
Yeah.
So on and so forth. And what's happening behind the scenes is on the daily note. I pull up the daily note again. It actually timestamps when that incident was captured. And so you can put additional information on here as well. So this is more concise than the actual incident record itself, but this helps you kind of summarize your day, essentially. And you can do that with every single entity type in the Scout and Cypher system. So if you do a new threat actor, it'll pop up in the timeline that you created a new threat actor. And so all that is saved in your daily note, which is nothing more than a markdown file that exists on your local hard drive, protected by your NTFS or your NFS permissions. And you can share it as you wish with your manager. All this information gets bubbled up into a weekly summary. So you can tag things to include in like a status report, for instance. Like an accomplishment or something along those lines. And so all that is the Scout side of things. Now, if we look at the Cypher side of things, I'll pull up a threat actor here. Just pull up Axiom. If you notice over on the right-hand side here, Axiom has a lot of things going on with them. And so we can color code, the TTPs that they're affiliated with. We can look at software that they use. We can look at things like the countries that they target. And all this information is gathered automatically right now through the use of threat actor packs that not only can you do yourself using the prompts that I include in the Scout program, but I also plan on doing quarterly or monthly updates of actor packs that you can just grab that information, paste it into your Scout instance, and you'll have all the latest information about those particular actors. Same thing with malware. If I look at Mimikatz, zoom out just a little bit, you see Mimikatz has got a lot of things going on with it. But let's say I want to pivot on this APT29.
It's interactive.
Yeah, it's all interactive. So, cozy car. And so that's kind of how it correlates information across multiple entities.
Yeah.
And you can color code and query and do all that stuff.
That's amazing. I can definitely see the correlation across your notes to the threat actors, to malware groups, to a lot of things. Also, let's talk about what Sentinel doesn't do. Because that really came to mind when you went back and you were putting your incident details. You had information about the alert link, right? The investigation link, right? All of these things and an investigation guidance that you may or may not be able to find, like when a SIM provides you a summary of what happened in the alert. A lot of that maybe can be copied pasted in there. Maybe you can have an integration that automates that or populates that. But what I find that you can't really upload screenshots to Sentinel or to your SIM and here I could see adding more enrichment, more context, and more how you see the alert, what connections you make back to this alert. If you've seen this before, right? Other things that can give a better picture of what to do and what's going on here. But I could see definitely like other sims coming with sort of a GPT analysis of what is going on here and giving a recommendation, a light one of what you should probably do next, right? So are you seeing that maybe not match what you're supposed to do, and like you're like, thanks for that, but actually this is what I need to be doing?
Well, I mean, it's funny because, like you mentioned, the screenshots is just one aspect of Sentinel that is a challenge for a lot of people, I think, because, ultimately the auditors are going to want to see screenshots. What are you going to do? You're going to decouple your screenshots from your system of record and kind of keep them in a blob somewhere on a file share. I guess that's one approach that you can do. However, the reality is that even with pasting just text into your closed notes or in your comments in a Sentinel incident, you're hard pressed to reference the screenshots within that.
Mm-hmm.
Here with Scout, if you're doing your incidents using your typical workflow and you're filling in the information as you're going through your investigation, you basically build your closed notes for you. And that will include stubs for links to the documents. And so if nothing else, I mean, even though Sentinel is a technical limitation with the screenshots, the closed notes will reflect, here's a stub of a screenshot, and we could pull that incident up in Scout and say, okay, here's what it looked like.
Yeah.
Completely.
And there's so much more to that you have to do even outside of the sim to carry an investigation fully. But the correlation and entity graphing, I can imagine, and you know more than me with now that you've actually had it in production for a bit. It reduces any rework, like relationship mapping and the rework ratio. It's probably an insane amount.
Yeah, I mean, really, it prevents duplicate investigations, first of all.
Yep.
But it also localizes changes in the system, and then it also makes any kind of negative work, like we talked about earlier, negative work reusable. So even if a junior analyst goes down the wrong path, or a senior analyst for that matter, I mean, we all make mistakes. We all go down rabbit holes. It doesn't mean that it's thrown away work. Whereas typically in a Sentinel incident or in any kind of regular investigation, you're only going to highlight the direct path from detection to closure, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't capture all of the things that you tried that didn't work.
Right.
And then furthermore, it also exposes any kind of hidden dependencies between entities as well. You may not realize that a TTP belongs to, is common with something that Scattered Spider uses or something along those lines. And this kind of helps flesh that out a little bit more visually.
Does it shine more in particular for like cloud and investigation entities, or is it more for just SIM alerts, or like is it able to provide cross-domain correlation visually?
Yeah, so it really matters more in the cloud than it does on-prem work because, the attack surface is relational by nature. I mean, in cloud and identity-centric environments, it's more important to know what could reach what versus where something happened. And so if you're looking at it from that standpoint and saying, I want to look at this asset and see what happened on that asset, identity and cloud-based stuff is more, it's a completely different ball of wax when it comes to those kinds of investigations. You're looking at relationships between people and roles and targets and things along those lines. And so it does do cross-domain correlation, assuming that the analyst has the discipline to admit that they went down a rabbit hole and, put in what they're doing as they're doing it. So it doesn't do it automatically. In other words, the analyst still has to put in, hey, I tried to go down this path on an identity-based incident, and this is what I found. It's almost like a journal. I mean, that's basically that's what it is. It's a journal of what you're doing in a narrative form for an incident.
A journal with the structure that you've embedded from, decades of experience. And I think that is something you can't teach some of the newer AI SOC kind of step running workflows that carry investigations that can go so many different ways. It's very difficult to have a preconceived playbook and throw it into a production center or a setting, and it's going to activate those set of steps and be exactly what that investigation needs at that time. So I know that investigations are not linear, but they're also very dynamic, and there's the chances are so low that your determined two like fishing playbooks from your SOAR is going to run through exactly when it needs to at the exact time that you're getting maybe not fish, maybe it's a different investigation, right? And now being able to document everything with your kind of lightweight application of your SOC incident history, like that creates so much tribal knowledge, reduces so much work. I could see that being so helpful too for a lot of junior analysts, and for like also controlled settings as well, like smaller environments, controlled settings where maybe we don't have like an AI SOC budget, for example, that can correlate every single alert and show you a very maybe over hallucinated analysis of your alerts connected across platforms. Like that was something we can do today with so many AI SOC out there, but it's the perception is very mixed out there with the hallucinations that we're seeing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's why, the prompts that I put together, worked for me to see the initial ones. But by all means, the whole beauty of this whole entire program system is that it's free and open source. I'm not compiling any code. Everything is straight Python files from a code perspective. So you can go in, see the code, make changes, update JSON files for configurations, and do everything that you need to do to customize it to your specific needs. The templates within Obsidian are very easy to modify. So if you don't like all the verbose stuff that's in my daily note, cut it out and replace it with yours.
Yeah.
The one thing that it doesn't really do is automation is kind of a challenge from the standpoint that without structured knowledge, you're bound by the rules, which are not fully defined. So you have to define the rules within Scout. So it doesn't understand context or interdependencies. Generally systems, not Scout, general systems.
Yeah.
Therefore, a lot of systems kind of collapse under their own weight of automation. This is not trying to be the end all be all automation. Let's bake you a cake and produce, world peace kind of thing. This is individual personal productivity that survives much of the automation that people are trying to slam in place right now.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to make you're building context that is going to make AI more useful later, because you're building this corpus of very intelligent findings and human-led findings, most importantly, not AI-generated findings with their take on things. This is first putting the human in truly not only in the loop but at the beginning, and then from then I'm excited to see the evolution of this, and maybe you can add more automation later, right? Maybe do more cross-platform correlation of entities.
Of course, definitely. Yeah. Or maybe the community can jump in and help me, because I can only vibe code so well.
Well, that's the beauty of open source projects. Well, on that note, how can folks start actually using it? How can they get their hands on it? How can they get an instance cloned and copied onto their local workstation?
Yeah, so it's essentially a GitHub repository that I have out there, github.com/K.C Yerrid/Scout. You can clone the repo. You can install a fresh install of Obsidian, so you don't have to worry about any kind of backdoors or anything that somebody might have put into the Obsidian executables or anything along those lines. Go download it from the Obsidian sanctioned site, install it, create your vault, pull down the base folders and structure from the GitHub repo, along with code, and then you're basically configuring your paths to where the Obsidian executable resides, where your RSS feeds are being consumed, and so on and so forth, and then just start using it and see what you come up with.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. And there's no, underlying vendor dependency. You can use it if you have Sentinel, Splunk, LogScale. What are other SIMs out there? Yeah, the whole shebang.
Yeah, it's platform independent. You can run it on Windows, Mac, Linux, Android. Technically, if you can get Python running on your iPhone, you could probably run it on your iPhone if you wanted to, or your iPad. There's no limitations from our perspective, other than what the technical limitations of Python and are.
Yeah, and well, if there's one thing I want to anger on, is the fact that it's very difficult for AI to help your investigations that weren't structured for humans first. And I think that you really did embed the human layer of it all. So if folks remember nothing else, like, just remember that. Remember that. And K.C, where can folks follow the GitHub repository? Where can they see more of your work? And also, what do you want to see more in the community?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's my only social network. I've extracted myself from the other ones, not looking back. And
Probably the best.
yeah. And so I'm just at /K.C Yerrid on LinkedIn. But the thing that I would like to see more of is I would like to see more people on the outside, junior folks, stepping up and asking questions on what would they like to see in a tool?
Mm-hmm.
Where are their pain points? How can you partner between an analyst and a detection engineer? Because, so far we haven't even touched the detection engineering side of Scout yet.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole component of detection engineering that we're trying to map out and trying to work with some organizations and some folks that are on the cutting edge of detection engineering. And so, I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes with Scout, because I think that's a huge part of not only with Scout and Cypher, but it's huge from an ITID perspective, because ITIDs are going to be based off of the detections that you write on your systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so, every ITID is going to have your detection engineering component to it. We need to incorporate that into the ITIDs and make sure that we're capturing, the signal rules or whatever have you on what triggers those ITIDs to fire.
Yeah, that's a whole other universe to get into, with because sometimes it's not just, because here I see that you are tackling the kind of the memory. Speaking from experience, my memory is super, super terrible, so this is something that would work really well with me. But you're tackling the memory and tribal knowledge and the incident following and structure framework of investigations. When we start touching on the detection engineering front, and being able to model and correlate maybe what yields more false positives, right? What detection problems are leading to tuning problems, like that is something that maybe can be uncovered in some of this tribal knowledge.
Absolutely. And, I have a partner who I've been working with, and we've been talking about how we're going to do the detection engineering side of things. And he's been fantastic to work with. I don't want to step on his toes, and so I haven't done any development on the detection engineering side, but I have a very strong passion towards it. And I'm interested to see how together and with the help of the community, hopefully, we can come together and solve the detection engineering side of this and really round out the rough edge of detection engineering on this platform.
Then you're going to have to give us a visit back when you're ready to talk about that one.
I will come back anytime you'd like.
Well, you're always welcome back here. And thank you so much for showcasing what you've been building here for. How long have you been working on this? I should have probably started that at first.
I'm gonna say it's been about 3 months now that I've been working on it. It's all working outside of my normal job, so I haven't been able to do anything during the day. So it's been a lot of late nights, a lot of caffeine, and a lot of energy drinks to try to put together some of this stuff. But yeah, it's something that I have to do outside of my my normal day-to-day job, just because of factors and things like that. So.
The beauty of open source, right? Unfunded, but it's because it's what brings us together, though, in the community. It's either you're really obsessed with something that you just love and you absolutely love doing, and it doesn't feel like work, or you are that's you're in the thick of it, right? Because of work,
Right.
yeah. Another something else we picked up at ChyberCon last week. But thank you so much for sharing this with us, K.C. You're always welcome back. That is a wrap for this episode, right? A true episode focused on the human thinking problem. As always, like, subscribe, and maybe share this with an analyst who's super tired of trying to relearn the same incident every quarter, or when a bunch of analysts are on to their next journey and then they're left with having to pick up where they are. I could see this also being extremely valuable for that kind of thing. We'll catch you next time on the next episode of Detection Dispatch.